Ladies and gentlemen, 1010 Money Talk presents Wide Open with the Sarge, along with today's very special co-host from Streetman Law, a Tampa Bay legend in the legal field, practicing corporate business attorney, and a talk show host that would never say yada yada yada, Mr. Morgan W. Streetman.
Yada, yada, yada.
Except for that he would say yada, yada, yada,
Yeah,
right? As Sarge likes to remind me.
Well, welcome to Monday.
Hey, happy Monday.
Wow, what a weekend we had.
I'll tell you what.
I got to tell you, the New York Times, Washington Post have been after President Trump big time. Two stories mainstream media is calling blockbuster. New York Times story was headlined, FBI opened inquiry into whether Trump was secretly working on behalf of Russia. Wow.
Wait a minute.
Wow.
That's a blockbuster, isn't it?
Blockbuster. Inquiry into whether Trump was secretly working on behalf of Russia. Working on behalf of Russia. Well, maybe if they found something, but they didn't. They start off the article saying this. The inquiry carried explosive implications. Counterintelligence investigators had to consider whether the president's own actions constituted a possible threat to national security. Agents also sought to determine whether Mr. Trump was knowingly working for Russia or had unwittingly fallen under Moscow's influence. Oh my goodness.
They had to. They had to determine.
Had to investigate. Oh my God, what's going on in our country? 9 paragraphs into the story, they kind of aside said this. No evidence has emerged publicly that Mr. Trump was secretly in contact with or took direction from Russian government officials. An FBI spokesman and spokesman for the special counsel's office both declined to comment.
So they basically just made it up as far as we know.
Pretty much. Yeah. Pretty much made up.
Yeah.
I mean, a huge story, front page, and front page, top of the page, FBI opened inquiry into whether Trump was secretly working on behalf of Russia.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know I think part of what's happening here is that they're starting to get into some trouble with the timeline in which they actually started these investigations.
Yeah.
So now they seem to be trying to muddy the waters as to exactly what was being investigated, why the investigation was started, when it was started, and they're trying to create all these different, supposedly different investigations that they opened. And I think that may be cover for the fact that they were actually investigating Trump, and we know that's fact based on the records, well before they were actually allowed to be, before the FBI had opened an official investigation.
Yeah. So this is like another investigation, I guess.
Well, yeah, right? I mean, how many are we at now? This would be like number 3 or 4, right?
Right.
But that's not, I don't think that's accurate. I think there was the one investigation into whether Trump had Russia ties, and that was called Crossfire Hurricane, remember? Right. And then they opened up another investigation, which is the special counsel investigation, but that happened after he got elected. Those are the 2 investigations that we actually know about that are disclosed. Now, like I said, I think they're trying to muddy the waters with this. Oh, well, we had another investigation also on President Trump because of this devastating material that we received, and we had to investigate because he could have unwittingly fallen under Vladimir Putin's spell.
Well, not to be outdone.
Oh, yeah.
The Washington Post.
That bastion of journalistic credibility.
Oh, my goodness, yes. The Bezos Post. Here's their headline. Here are 18 reasons Trump could be a Russian asset.
What? Could be.
Could be. Key word, could. Could be. Number 1, Trump has a long financial history with Russia. Well, duh, he's a businessman. He's an international businessman. I guess he probably did have some.
Well, what does that even mean, though? That's a pretty generalized statement, isn't it?
So what?
So he's done business with or in Russia? I mean, exactly what has he done? In other words, they just gloss over it to make it sound worse than it. He's got a long history of business with Russia.
Okay, number 2. There's 18 of these things.
I know. I'm going to let you go.
No, that's fine. The Russians interfered in the 2016 U.S. election to help elect Trump president.
And spent $75,000 total over 3 years. That was their interference in the election.
Yeah.
And the biggest memes were about Jesus and Yosemite Sam.
Right.
I'm not kidding. That's the congressional testimony.
The Russians interfered in the 2016 U.S. election to help elect President Trump.
Okay, so let's mark that one off.
Trump encouraged the Russians to hack Hillary Clinton's emails on July 27, 2016. You remember what that's about?
Yeah. I thought he was joking.
He was kidding. He said, okay, fine.
If
Take
you
a
got
look.
them, get them to me. And if you don't have them, get them and give them to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he was playing to the crowd.
Hey, it was a joke.
Yeah, right. That wasn't actually, he didn't actually make his formal request there at the podium live on TV to the Russians, right?
Vladimir, could you please inspect? Right. Okay, there were, according to the Moscow Project, 101 contacts between Trump's team and Russia-linked operatives.
What does that even mean? What does it mean to be a Russia-linked operative?
A Russia-linked operative?
Like you once read Dostoevsky or something? Now you're Russian-linked?
Okay, number 5. The Trump campaign was full of individuals such as Carter Page, George Papadopoulos, Paul Manafort, Rick Gates, and Michael Flynn with suspiciously close links to Moscow.
Suspiciously close.
Oh, my goodness, we're built
Readers, let us program you. You should be suspicious of these contacts.
Suspicious.
Just the whisper of them should send you into a tizzy.
Okay, Manafort, who ran the Trump campaign for free and was heavily in debt to a Russian oligarch, now admits to offering his Russian business partner, who is suspected of links to Russian intelligence, polling data that could have been used to target the Russian social media campaign on behalf of Trump. What?
I don't even understand that.
What on earth are they saying?
But I know they've
here?
said that he's provided some of the Facebook data or something, or he's admitted to that, and it's like, I believe everybody had the Facebook data.
Yeah.
I mean, according to Facebook, they've given it out to like 20 different major companies. So it's out there now.
Okay, Trump associate Roger Stone, who was in contact with Russian conduit WikiLeaks.
What?
Yeah.
WikiLeaks is not a Russian conduit.
No.
Sorry, I interrupted.
Russian conduit. Oh, love it. Reportedly, Roger Stone knew in advance that the Russians had hacked Clinton campaign chairman John Podesta's emails. Well, now Stone has denied it. They have no proof.
Yeah.
They have no proof. But here they're saying reportedly knew in advance.
Right.
Reportedly, allegedly, anonymous source. Sources say.
Right.
Wow. I tell you. Once in office, Trump fired Comey to stop the investigation of the, what he called, Russia thing. Well, he fired Comey because Comey was a dope. He's the worst FBI director in history.
Yeah.
And that's why he got fired. He was horrible, and the Democrats wanted him fired. Everybody wanted him fired.
Until he was fired.
Right.
And even Rod Rosenstein wrote a memo saying he should be fired.
Yeah.
I mean, he put his name to it. If he didn't want to do it, he shouldn't have done it. Everybody at the time was talking about what a terrible job Comey had done.
Yeah, yeah. But now, all of a sudden, oh my God, you fired that wonderful man Comey.
Right.
Yeah.
Must be because of the Russia thing.
Probably, yeah. Vladimir probably had him do that. Trump has refused to consistently acknowledge that Russia interfered in the U.S. election or mobilize a government-wide effort to stop future interference. Okay.
Well, you know who else has refused to acknowledge that the Russians interfered in the election is, all the officials of social media who have told us exactly how much they interfered.
Yeah.
And if $4,700 spent on Google ads, if that little drop in the bucket is sufficient to have changed Americans' minds, I mean, those people are maybe we ought to take away their right to vote almost.
Yeah, really.
I mean, really, how stupid can you be if $4,700 of Russian ads can confuse you?
Like no previous president, Trump attacks and undermines the Justice Department and the FBI. Okay, well, you got James Comey in there. You got Strzok, Page.
Right.
I mean, and I could go on and on and on. All of the people who were in there who were just doing horrible things.
Right. Acting very badly. And, is it the person who acts badly who brings disrepute onto the institution, or is it the one who points out the person acting badly?
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that what we're talking about here? I mean, who really brought all of this negative feeling to the Justice Department and to the FBI among the American people? It's the people who were there who who were behaving badly.
Can you say McCabe?
Yeah, McCabe, Strzok, Loverboy with Lovergirl Page. I mean, the stuff that they were doing, the text messages they were sending, they're the ones that have undermined the Justice Department.
Exactly. Okay. Again, like no previous president, Trump attacks and undermines the European Union and NATO.
How's that been? I mean, how's that?
Yeah.
I mean, how's he done that?
Well, he just talks about what's going on, that they're not paying their fair share, that the EU is a mess, which it is.
Yeah.
And so he's undermining them. He's trying to get them to pay their fair share, trying to get them to be an equal partner.
So by telling us the truth, he's undermining these institutions. Here we go again. Maybe the institutions are undermining themselves.
Oh, here's a big one. Trump supports populist pro-Russian leaders in Europe, such as Viktor Orban in Hungary and Marine Le Pen in France, just as the Russians do.
He sounds more and more like a Russian every one of these you read, Sarge.
Oh, my goodness, it's just building a case here. Trump has praised Putin. He's called him a strong leader.
Oh, my God. You know, this is such a joke. I mean, you remember, of course, when George W. Bush had Putin out to the ranch in Crawford, Texas. I remember looked into his eyes and said he saw the man's soul, and he was a good man. Remember all that stuff?
Do you remember President Obama talking to Medvedev?
Yeah.
And whispering when he thought there was no mic turned on.
Right.
Well, as soon as I'm reelected, I'll have a lot more I can do.
Yeah, more flexibility.
And Medvedev said, yes, I will take that back to Vladimir.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, we don't have the first thing of Trump doing that kind of thing.
Oh, but Trump has praised Putin as a strong leader.
Trump has stated the obvious. I mean, Putin's a strong man.
He is a strong leader.
He's a strong leader.
Good grief. And, besides that, some ladies like him with his shirt off.
Vladimir Vladimirovich, yes.
Oh, yeah. Go and play with the tigers. Trump was utterly supine in his meetings with Putin, principally in Hamburg and Helsinki. Even more suspicious. These are their words here.
Right,
not mine.
Right.
Even more suspicious, according to a Post article on Saturday, Trump has gone to extraordinary lengths to conceal details of his conversations with Putin.
Oh, my gosh. Well,
Well, let me see. We'll go through this a little later, too, but isn't the reason that he has to conceal conversations because there were so many leaks?
Yeah, and it's curious to me how they can evaluate his behavior in the meetings. They say Trump was utterly supine, which means he was subordinate to. And how do they know if...
They have no idea.
If Trump has gone to such extraordinary lengths to conceal what occurred in the meetings that nobody knows. So how do they know how he behaved? They don't.
Oh, do they have a hidden microphone?
Well, it's just internal inconsistency in their own point making.
Sure. I mean, they sit around in their rooms and they talk about their offices and they talk about all of this stuff and they say, well, obviously he was supine.
Mm-hmm.
He was just, oh, yes, Vladimir, whatever you say. Can you imagine Donald Trump being that way?
No.
I mean, seriously.
But what I can't imagine is that Donald Trump puts on a good front. I mean, he's a gregarious guy. He's personable. And when he wants to make a deal with you or try to make something happen, he doesn't start out by slapping you in the face. He starts out buddying up to you. That's deal making 101.
He slaps you on the butt.
That's right. It's deal making 101.
Yeah, exactly. Trump is pulling U.S. troops out of Syria, handing that country to Russia and its ally, Iran.
Oh, gosh.
Wait a minute. Those 2,000 troops were supposed to be in there temporarily, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what were they supposed to be in there for?
To defeat ISIS.
To defeat ISIS. And as we get ISIS defeated, of course, I don't think ISIS is ever going to be defeated, but in Syria, they're in very bad shape right now.
Mm-hmm.
And because of what Turkey is doing about the Kurds, we're reevaluating that. Trump is reevaluating that, he and his people, and we're leaving troops in there because we're not going to just bail on the Kurds. And I hope that continues to be that way. Trump has had some very, 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 very harsh things to say about Turkey, and Erdogan, the leader in Turkey, has had some very, very, very bad things to say about Trump.
Right.
So we're at a kind of a bad situation here. I think we kind of hold the cards, though, where Turkey's concerned.
Sure. Sure.
You know?
Absolutely.
It's not like Turkey can tell us what to do.
Right.
Let me see. Trump has effectively done nothing in response to the Russian attack on Ukrainian ships in international waters, thereby encouraging greater Russian aggression. Okay, so let me ask you this. What was he supposed to do? Is he supposed to go in and rocket some Russian ships?
Yeah, right.
What's he supposed to do? He has verbally come out very strong against that, said it's the wrong thing to do, and in support of the Ukrainians, and he's giving the Ukrainians more and more and more military supplies. Mm-hmm. What are you supposed to do? What would Barack Obama do? Or, better yet, what would Hillary Clinton do if she'd won?
Well, I can tell you what Barack Obama would do. He would threaten to send ships over, and then he'd send them over. And when they were about halfway over there across the Atlantic, he'd change his mind and call them back.
Exactly. Okay, and number 18, Trump is sowing chaos in the government. Most recently with a record-breaking partial government shutdown and acting appointees in key positions such as the Defense Department and Justice Department, thus furthering a Russian objective of undermining its chief adversary.
Wow.
Boy, there's a lot in that one.
Everything he does, everything's about the Russians, isn't it?
Yeah.
They sure have made it about the Russians.
Yeah, no matter what he does.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he goes to the men's room across the street.
That's right. Well, he's
Russians.
Encouraging the Russians.
Yeah.
By going to the men's
I
room.
think he was meeting a Ruski over there.
Right.
Who else was in that bathroom? Then this guy, Max Boot, the Post columnist who wrote the story, he says this. I'm going to quote him here. I can't think of anything that would exonerate Trump aside from the difficulty of grasping what once would have seemed unimaginable, that a president of the United States could actually have been compromised by a hostile foreign power. In his own defense, Trump claims he has been tougher on Russia than any other president, but literally in the next sentence he says getting along with Russia is a good thing, not a bad thing. When the United States actually has taken steps to get tough with Russia in the past 2 years, it has usually been the work of Congress or Trump aides, like expelling 60 Russian diplomats. Well, let me see. The last time diplomats were expelled in the Obama administration, did Barack Obama walk in and expel them, or did his aides expel them? I think his aides did, right?
Mm-hmm.
The president doesn't do that.
Right.
The president directs that, and the president, Trump, directed that. President Trump directed things to do against the Russians, and he has held their feet to the fire.
Well, and I'm sorry for just questioning the entire narrative of why we have to get so tough with the Russians. I mean, I thought when we, quote unquote, defeated communism, defeated the USSR and the Berlin Wall came down, I thought we were then allowed to potentially be friendly with those nations on the other side of that wall.
Well, yeah, didn't we? I remember something about a reset button.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that when we were born in this country as an American, we are born with the sworn enemy of Russia. I've never realized that, but that's what this appears to be to me, that if you don't hate Russia too, you are a traitor to our country. And if the president doesn't go with us and hate Russia as much as we hate Russia and want to destroy Russia or whatever the game is, and look, the game is what the Pentagon said. This is what Pentagon insiders said years ago. They said, we want to go to war with Russia because Russia's military is improving while, frankly, our country is a little bit on the decline.
Right.
And so we're better positioned now to go to war with Russia than we're going to be in 10 years or 20 years.
Right.
And particularly when China is stronger. So we've got to go to war with both Russia and China. And we covered this on my show. So we might as well get started now. And the one to start with is Russia right now because they've got the most military deterrent to us.
As I've said over and over and over, the one to worry about is China, not Russia.
Right. But we're going to start with Russia to try and also kind of scare off China, I think. I mean, it's just craziness. This constant warfare is crazy.
And at the end, he says, this is hardly a beyond reasonable doubt case that Trump is a Russian agent, but it is a strong circumstantial case that Trump is an unwitting agent of the Russian Federation or a useful fool who is manipulated by Moscow. If Trump isn't actually a Russian agent, he's doing a pretty good imitation of one. Do you believe that?
Well, it's so strange to me that he points out that this is hardly a beyond a reasonable doubt case, which means he hasn't proved this to himself even beyond a reasonable doubt, but he also says he can't think of anything that would exonerate Trump. And isn't that because inside of his own head he's already made up his mind?
He's guilty.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's a Russian. Trump is a Russian agent.
Mm-hmm.
They've decided. Okay, so what did the president have to say about all of this?
I think it's the most insulting thing I've ever been asked. I think it's the most insulting article I've ever had written.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
Just ridiculous. It's just a ridiculous one. Well, the Democrats are having a good old time in the sun.
Pass the pina colada, would you, Sarge?
Oh, my goodness. We're going to talk about that when we come back on Money Talk 1010, 103.1 and 92.1 FM. Oh, Morgan. Sometimes the blindness of politicians is just stunning.
Yeah.
Now, you've heard the story of Roman Emperor Nero fiddling while Rome burned.
Oh, that's a famous one. Yeah.
I mean, that's just a story because there weren't fiddles when Nero was around. But apparently he just didn't care. He was at his villa somewhere, and there's word that Nero probably wanted it burned down because he built a new palace on top of what was where the used to be.
And then he got to blame it on the Christians too, you know,
Yep.
the old false flag trick.
Well, this past weekend and continuing today, while government workers are furloughed, the border crisis continues. 39 Democrats lawmakers hopped on a charter jet to join 109 lobbyists in Puerto Rico for a getaway and some meetings.
It's time to party.
Partay. To justify the trip, the Democrats also attended the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Bold PAC gathering in San Juan, met with Puerto Rican officials to discuss ongoing cleanup efforts from Hurricane Maria.
Oh, yeah.
So
I'm sure that's what they were really focused on.
So that justified the private jet and like 4 days in Puerto Rico. This is a lobbying getaway they sponsor every year to supposedly push Puerto Rican issues to Democratic congressmen. However, among those attending, and listen to these members of some of the prominent Washington firms as representatives from R.J. Reynolds, Facebook, Comcast, Amazon, Pharma, Microsoft, Intel, Verizon, and unions like the National Education Association. Yeah, it's all about Puerto Rican issues and incidents. Yeah, that's what it's all about. Senator Bob Menendez, did you see the picture of Bob Menendez?
The picture was, James Woods tweeted it out. It was priceless.
Oh, he spotted on the beach getting a tan while talking with a bikini-clad woman.
And he's got a history of, having some issues with picadillos because he was flying down to the Dominican Republic and let's throw in there allegedly, visiting ladies of the night, some of whom were perhaps not even old enough to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I were that woman, thank goodness they didn't show her face. But if I were that woman, that picture's kind of grainy, and it makes her look kind of yucky.
Easy. It all depends on your perspective, Sarge, because I get the feeling Senator Menendez was happy with his situation there. Yeah, he appeared to be.
Stepping on his tongue. It's not a good look for them. They probably should have found a way to cancel or postpone the getaway during this time when there's hundreds of thousands of federal workers furloughed and
not getting paid.
And not getting paid. And they're working.
And not able to go just party at a hotel paid for by a bunch of lobbyists, right?
Yeah. Now, over the weekend, they had to shut down a couple of terminals. One terminal in Miami, I believe, and one other somewhere else. But they're all back working again now. So that was a temporary thing. Border issues are continuing. We need to solve the border issues to get the furloughed workers back. Right. And they're off partying. GOP Chairwoman Rona McDonald lambasted the Democrats in Puerto Rico. Here's what she said. While President Trump is in D.C. working to resolve the government shutdown and secure our border, Democrats are hitting the beach and partying with lobbyists. There's pictures of them having the wonderful time on the beach and attending a special performance of the Broadway hit Hamilton. Now, you'll remember Hamilton for the performance where the star of the show lectured Vice President Pence, saying on stage, and this is the guy who was playing Aaron Burr. Yeah. And I think that's fitting that it was Aaron Burr.
Right.
Vice President, he said on stage after the show to the Vice President, looked him in the eye and said, "We are the diverse America who are alarmed and anxious that your new administration will not protect us, our planet, our children, our parents, or defend us and uphold our inalienable rights, sir. But we truly hope this show has inspired you to uphold our American values and work on behalf of all of us. You know, the reason I put that in there, this happened, last December, right? Is because he says you are not protecting us, defending us, and upholding our inalienable rights. Wait a second, what's going on at the border? You're not protecting us?
Absolute chaos.
He's trying to protect, and the Democrats aren't.
Well, and don't you think that these Hamilton stars probably thinking that, you know, what he's really talking about maybe the undocumented migrants coming here? Mm-hmm. And he's saying when he's saying us, he's talking about them?
Maybe.
So, you know, because, I mean, it's pretty much par for the course for the Democrats to say that the undocumented migrants from other countries are more important than American citizens here.
Well, or as important, because like in some cities in California, San Francisco, they're letting undocumented aliens vote.
Yeah, well, and Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, donated her salary to refugees, not to the people in her own state, some of which who are furloughed and not getting paychecks.
And the Democrat woman who lost the governor race in Georgia is saying now, well, I think that maybe undocumented people need to have a voice because they're living and working here. So we need to give them, in other words, give them the vote. Totally.
Even before the election, we played the clip where she talked about her, supporters included undocumented people.
Yep, that's right. Wow. Well,
and remember, Obama said you're never more of an American than when you go and vote, regardless of whether you're a citizen.
Just voting makes you an American.
That's right.
Wow. That's kind of circular thought.
Well, it works out perfect for them because what these people really are is undocumented Democrats.
Wow. Kellyanne Conway had quite a time with Jim Acosta, and we're going to tell you all about that when we come back on Money Talk 1010, 92.1 and 103.1 FM. Oh, Morgan, sometimes I really, really enjoy the things that happen in the news.
Yeah, I know.
And this was one of them. Did you see that heated face-off between Kellyanne Conway and Jim Acosta?
It's great. It's great.
Acosta loved to provoke controversy with questions designed to irritate his subject. In a press conference ahead of the president's televised address on border security last week, Acosta did his typical incendiary question, and then Kellyanne tore him up.
And can you promise that the president will tell the truth tonight? Will he tell the truth?
Yes, Jim, and can you promise that you will?
I will.
The whole truth
absolutely.
and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I'm not the
Am
one
I
who
allowed
has
to
the
mention God to
alternative
you?
facts problem like you do.
No,
Will the
Jim, I know
president tell
that's
the
a cheat.
truth?
Make sure that goes viral.
Okay.
This is why, by the way, this is why I'm one of the only people around here who even gives you the time of day.
Can you guarantee
And
that the
let
president's
me
speech
get
will
back
pass a
in your
fact check?
face, because you're such a smart ass most of the time, and I know you want this to go viral. A lot of these people don't like you. But let me just be respectful to the media writ large, as I always am. I explained that was alternative information and additional facts. And I explain it many times. And don't you put it back in my face for all the corrections that your network needs to issue. I was on your network 25 or 26 times in 2018. I'm one of the last people here who even bother to go on. And the disrespect that you show to me personally, I'll just look past.
Ma'am,
I
just asked you if
don't
the
call me
president
ma'am
would be
to
telling the
make it up.
truth tonight.
Call me ma'am.
Wow.
I think Kellyanne won that one. Of course, the left-wing media thinks it was totally improper for Kellyanne to go after poor little Jimmy.
Victimizing the media.
Greg Gutfeld, you got to hear this. Greg Gutfeld played the exchange on his show this weekend and then issued an announcement to try to help Acosta.
I have a public service announcement.
And now, a public service announcement.
If you happen to come across two fleshy, prune-sized orbs rolling down Pennsylvania Avenue, please put them on ice and promptly return them to Jim Acosta.
Oh, no.
Wow.
That's what I call a random act of kindness.
Well, Gutfield is sardonic, but I mean,
is.
that's I tell you, that was an interesting visual picture he painted there.
The poor White House press corps has to support acerbic Acosta, even though a lot of them dislike him and his grandstanding that prevents them from asking legitimate questions. Instead, Acosta asks incendiary questions like, can you promise that the president will tell the truth?
Yeah. What a loaded question that is.
Yeah. And then he continues to talk over her, just like he does in the press conferences in the press room.
Right, which is why his press pass got pulled for a while. But then, of course, they filed lawsuits, and everybody up in arms, an attack on freedom of the press. No,
I mean, it had to be tough for the press corps, some in the press corps anyway, to support him in that last deal, because they hate the guy because he sucks all the oxygen out of the room.
Right. Well, he eats up a bunch of time, and he's discrediting journalists as an industry. I mean, the way that he comes at it with his own opinion, and all his questions are so loaded. Yeah. I mean, it undermines the entire media.
Yeah, his questions are the when did you quit beating your wife version.
Right, exactly. There's no right answer.
Yeah, the only right answer is what?
Yeah, the only right answer is something like what Kellyanne did, which is to really have to go toe-to-toe with the reporter, and then he throws up his hands like he didn't just pick that fight, and he's like, oh, you're attacking me, Kellyanne. No, you just picked this fight.
He has perfected the look. Afterwards, this look of, oh my gosh, what they've done to me.
Martyrdom.
Yeah, they'll put him on a bench in front of the White House, and he'll be sitting there kind of downtrodden. And why do they treat me like this?
Right.
Because you're a jerk.
That's right.
Jerks get treated that way. Oh. Last week we were talking about buzzwords.
Mm-hmm.
They all use talking points and buzzwords, all the politicians and the mainstream media. They use them to try to drive home a concept their parties are trying to push. Last week we told you that Kamala Harris was floating a brand new Democratic buzzword to go with manufactured crisis. Well, guess what? It's growing.
What we don't want to do is waste taxpayer money on a vanity project that's ineffective that the president said Mexico would pay for.
This is a crisis of the president's own making, on the president's vanity project.
Donald Trump really blew up negotiations that were proceeding in good faith over a vanity project.
There you go.
Wow.
Vanity project.
Wow.
Now, actually, I did some searching over the weekend. Actually, Vanity Project has been floated before. But all of a sudden, now that Kamala Harris is using it, boom, here it goes. It's going to be another one of their talking points that, this border thing is number one, it's a manufactured crisis. And number two, it's just this vanity project by the president.
Well, it's so insulting, the way they describe everything. I mean, it's so loaded up with negative thoughts about the president, like the president is so vain. Now, I think maybe the president is fairly vain based on his...
Aren't all politicians?
Yeah, probably so. I mean, based on his track record, I think he probably is vain. But that being said, this isn't a vanity project. This is literally the reason he was elected. It's literally the reason he was elected. And they're not getting that. And when they come out with things like vanity projects, temper tantrums, and words like that, they're denigrating the strongly held concerns of half of our electorate.
Yeah, and the reason that so many people want to have the border strengthened, including Democrats, by the way, who until just the last few weeks were all for border barriers.
Right.
They were all for them. Oh, well, no, now if it's something that Donald Trump is for, I'm against it.
Well, we played the clips last week.
Yeah, all of them.
Right.
All of them have through the years.
Chuck Schumer, right, all
but
of
they've
them.
done nothing about it.
Sure, right.
See, that's the deal. But now, here we are. And I say, if they float this thing where, and I don't know, I doubt that this is really true, but they float this deal where they say that the crime rate among illegal aliens is so much lower than among native-born Americans.
Right.
Okay, I'll give it to them. Okay,
maybe that's true.
Let's say that's true because there are so many illegal aliens here, and they don't want to be found out.
Right.
The best way to be found out is if you commit a crime. So they don't commit crimes. However, we have had so many people killed by illegal aliens with drunk driving, with guns, with knives, with crime, and there's been so much crime done by illegal aliens. Maybe it's less than native-born people. However, what I say is, if they weren't here, those crimes wouldn't be committed, would they?
Right.
Those people wouldn't be dead, would they?
Nope.
If they weren't here. And they don't belong here. They're in the country illegally.
I saw a story over the weekend. I almost pulled it from my show, but I didn't because they didn't describe in there whether the person was here legally or not. But based on the name that they gave for the person who was involved in a hit and run that killed somebody,
Right.
and based on the fact that they said the person did not have a valid driver license, I'm just putting two and two together, and I'm saying, well, geez, I wonder if that person was in this country legally. It doesn't sound like it to me.
Yeah, that 2 and 2 may equal 4 or may not.
It may not, but I'll tell you what, that's a lot of what's happening is these DUIs by people who are not here legally.
Yep.
You know, and if it's your loved one that's killed, I tell you, I think it creates a whole new perspective on this open border controversy.
Yeah, I'm sick of it, and all the politicians know that fighting against a good barrier at the border is a stupid thing to do.
Yeah.
And if they didn't, all they have to do is look at Jim Acosta's report from last week where he's walking up and down along the barrier saying, well, there's nobody here, so there's no crisis.
That was hilarious.
No, Jim, there's nobody there because there's a barrier there.
Because you're now walking along next to the wall.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, here's a name we haven't heard in a while. Harry Reid.
Oh, boy. I thought he was gone for good.
No, that Harry Reid, the former Democrat Senate leader, the one who famously said during the 2012 election that Mitt Romney didn't pay any taxes for 10 years. Yep. It's the same Harry Reid who later admitted he knew it was false when he said it, but justified telling that lie by saying, Romney didn't win, did he?
Oh.
So in other words, it's okay to tell a whopper if it does what you want it to do.
Yeah. Well, Harry Reid was known as being like a blood sport politician.
Yeah.
You know, he would do he was a dirty tricks guy.
Okay, so now Harry Reid is now doing lessons in morality. During an interview with Nevada Public Radio, Reid called President Trump amoral, not immoral, amoral. He proposed that newly minted Senator Mitt Romney would make a great foil against Trump, said Romney should run against Trump in 2020. He went on to explain the difference between immoral, you do things like cheat in business or on your wife, everybody does that, and you feel bad about it, and then it's okay. Amoral means you have no conscience. No conscience? As in, Romney didn't win, did he? Huh? The caller to the station in Nevada's KNPR said to Reid, what about that remark? And the former senator did it again. He lied. I never said he said, I never said he didn't pay taxes. I said he didn't pay his fair share of taxes. Whoops, Harry. That's another whopper. Here's what Harry said. This is the quote. He didn't pay any taxes for 10 years. He didn't pay taxes for 10 years. Quote, unquote. During the interview, now, I want you to remember that the things that he said about Mitt Romney before, but during the interview, Reid also called Romney a fine, moderate Republican who could work with Democrats. That's another whopper. In 2012, Reid called Romney's claim that Senate Democrats would work with him a fantasy and laughable. So now here we are, 6 years later, and Romney's a fine, moderate Republican who could work with Democrats, and I guess he's not laughable anymore. Remember, the definition of amoral is when you have no conscience.
Well, and it's a lot easier for guys like Harry Reid because they'll do these interviews and nobody in the media will ever hold them accountable for what they've said.
They never call him on it. Even when the caller called in on KNPR and said, what about that? They just deflected it.
Right. They don't say, that's right, Senator Reid. You know, you did say that. You know, they don't confirm what the caller said. They don't really, fact check the guy, Harry Reid. They just let him say whatever he wants to say.
When he was in the Senate, on this show and on your show, we talked all the time about the things that Harry Reid did that were just so lying and nasty and smarmy. The means justified the ends, or the ends justified the means. Sorry, the ends justified the means. Do anything to get reelected. It doesn't matter.
And now he's on Romney's side, it appears, right? I mean, he's flip-flopped.
That is what's laughable.
Yeah. Well, you just wonder. You just wonder about what kind of deals have been made, what kind of backroom deals have been made. Who knows? It's sad that we have to think like that.
No, but we know that's happening. I've said it many times. When I was living in Washington, D.C., I'd see them going at each other on TV and then go down to the Palm at lunch, and there they are, sitting there together, having a good old time, having drinks and slapping each other on the back.
That's right.
And that's the way politics work in the United States.
Kind of like pro wrestling.
Yeah. Yeah, Mark Charles doesn't want to talk about that.
No.
No comment.
Mark is a big pro wrestling fan.
I can nor deny or confirm these allegations.
Hey, I was always a big wrestling fan, too, when I was younger, man. I remember. And, of course, this is a great area for wrestling.
Oh, yeah.
Mark and I could probably have some chats about that.
Yeah. Well, the Detroit Auto Show is going on, and some really interesting things happening there that we're going to tell you about when we come back on Money Talk 1010, 103.1, and 92.1 FM. Hey, Morgan, your show is coming up after the top of the hour. What are you going to be talking about?
Well, we got some great stuff to cover still on the border, but one of the things we wanted to get into specifically is about that interview with President El-Sisi of Egypt. So we've got all the clips that we didn't get to run last week, and we got we probably got 30 stories for today's show. So I'm sure we won't get it all in. We got a lot to give everybody.
But you'll be back again tomorrow here.
That's right.
Right. Maybe we can get to some of them then.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of car and truck models that have gone by the wayside. The Detroit Auto Show is this week. And a lot of models we thought were dead are being resurrected. The resurrection trend includes Chevy, Ford, Honda, Jeep, and Toyota, which are all resuscitating models that were discontinued years ago. Toyota, they're going to return the Toyota Supra, that sports car that had a cult following among Gen X in the 80s and 90s. Wow, I've seen pictures of it. Fabulous. It fizzled out more than 20 years ago. Retro's cool again, so the Supra is getting a second shot. Toyota joins a crowded party. Ford Ranger, mid-size pickup truck, is making a comeback this year. Discontinued less than a decade ago. I had one of those.
Yeah.
Great. The Ford Ranger's a great truck.
Yeah.
And the Ford Bronco SUV is heading to dealerships as a 2020 model. That was discontinued. Ford is seeking to recapture the intensely loyal following the Bronco had before the O.J. Simpson case and the white Bronco.
Right.
Jeep, Fiat Chrysler Automobiles, which owns a Jeep, is reviving the Jeep Gladiator pickup this year. We've talked about it here before, and that thing is really nice. Like the Ranger, it's aiming for the mid-size pickup segment. Mm-hmm. Honda plans to begin selling the Honda Passport SUV later this year. It's a remake of the Passport SUV sold in the 90s, which was originally a rebadged Isuzu Rodeo with some minor modifications. Chevy, General Motors weeks ago began selling a new SUV called the Chevy Blazer, which takes inspiration from several models of old, including the Chevy Trailblazer, which faded out a decade ago. And there are a lot of reasons for automakers to do this. It's because it's cheaper.
Yeah.
To revive something older than to rebadge and redo a whole new vehicle.
Sure.
They generate buzz. You can't get rid of the publicity that you get when you rebadge something, and oh my God, the Supra is back.
Right.
It's a great deal for public relations. Okay, well, Morgan, you going to be back again next week?
Yeah, well, I'll be back tomorrow.
Oh.
And I'll be back tomorrow and Friday with you, Sarge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this week. So it'll be...
You know what my mind went to? It was Friday.
No, I wish it was Friday, Sarge, but we aren't that lucky. It's Monday.
Yeah, okay. Well, okay, have a great show, and we'll see you again tomorrow, Morgan.
All right, sounds good.
Have a great afternoon, have a wonderful evening, and remember that the Sarge always wants to make sure that you be at ease.